What's up, guys, and welcome back to the One Sitting Classic Book Club, the book club that I was so adamant would never meet again, is meeting again. I'm your host, Atticus Fina, and if I look a little sickly right now, it's because it is finally springtime again and my allergies are kicking me in the booty. That being said, though, we have two amazing classics to get to today. First, I will be reading A Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess, and also The Pearl by John Steinbeck. But I'm very excited about both of these books. Clockwork Orange, I have no idea what that phrase means. And then The Pearl, I was actually recommended to read The Pearl by a comment on the last video. So thank you, Victoria. I actually had this book at home, which I had no idea. This is like an ancient copy of it too, so it doesn't get more classic than this. Anyway, I'm not reading both of these in the same night. This time I'm gonna do one sitting for this one sitting for this one. The point of it is really just to get the full scope of each book. Also, I am loving all the orange going on right now. So without further ado, let's dive in to A Clockwork Orange. Our first book is A Clockwork Orange, and I am reading it from the College of Engineering. Online it says this takes about 4 hours to get through. So that means we're gonna be here until probably 11 or midnight. There are 4 buildings in the engineering complex. I might do an hour per building. That's genius. Here we go. Okay, I just read the first chapter. What is this book? I knew nothing coming in. Every other word is just some random made-up word. Some of them sound like normal words, but then the rest are just like Rasudox, Mesto, Scory, Fishes, Horror Show. Horror Show is really interesting. He uses that word a lot. I'm gonna look up some reviews, see if it ever changes or if I'm just gonna have to learn a whole new vocabulary to finish this book, but okay, it looks like it's just slang that we're gonna have to deal with the entire book. And that's okay. Bubble time. I've officially read the first 4 chapters, and we are a quarter of the way done with the book. The best way I can describe what this book is like is like a modern, gritty Shakespeare. Very disturbing. I understand all the new, weird slang vocabulary words, and I really wish I didn't. I don't know, at some point in chapter 2, right at the beginning of the book, was like the worst of the worst. It's very cleverly written so that you're figuring out how to understand what he's saying. I think the fact that he still lives with his parents is really funny to me, because he's like this terrible gang leader, and he still lives with his parents, and they still like make him breakfast. What the heck? Okay. On second thought, I might just go read in my room. This is losing its novelty real fast. As you can see, I found a study lounge in the village, and it is slightly less scary than the abandoned engineering complex. I'm 50 pages in. This book is weird and freaky. I really like the way they introduced A Clockwork Orange. Let me read out to you the excerpt from A Clockwork Orange, which is a manuscript within the book, which is very cool. The attempt to impose upon man, a creature of growth and capable of sweetness, to ooze juicily at the last round the bearded lips of God. To attempt to impose, I say, laws and conditions appropriate to a mechanical creation. Against this, I raise my sword pen. That provides us a little bit of insight about the world we're dealing with here. He mentions it later about his mom and how she has to go to work by law. If you're not sick and if you're of age, you have to go to work. Pretty much so far, we've seen one night in this guy's life where he and his droogs, his gang members, did a bunch of horrible, unspeakable things that I will not describe. They also use the word ultraviolence a lot. Lana Del Rey reference, perhaps. I'm excited to learn more about this world, so I'll see you in like an hour. It has not been an hour and I'm not halfway done yet, but I did just finish part 1. We find out that the narrator is only 15 and he's doing all these terrible, horrible things. And it's a huge problem, the streets at night, and he is the problem. His own parents are terrified of going out at night, so they never do. People are blaming different things for the modern youth and what they do. They finally catch him, and he doesn't care until he finds out that a woman has died from her injuries that he caused. And he's like, well, it's over for me. This whole list of crimes that he already admitted to, it didn't even matter. It feels like as long as you go to work, murder is the only illegal thing in this universe. I don't know if I like this. I'm gonna keep reading. Bye. Alright team, we're halfway done with the book. I'm back in my room to finish this out. He's been in jail. He wants to get out of jail. And apparently there's something you can do that completely fixes you and makes you good again. And he's about to do that. I think this book is about to get even crazier and better. So I'm excited to find out what happens in the second half. So, as I was saying, welcome back to the two-sitting Classic Book Club. Hope you enjoyed your brief intermission. That was totally planned from the start. Look, it was late. I was not able to fight off the sleep. But you know what? It's still pretty much one sitting. You know, I was reading the book. I made it halfway through. I fell asleep. I dreamt about the book. And I woke up and I read the rest of it. All the thoughts, still the same. But the next morning, I grabbed some coffee and I went to the UNL Law Library to read the second half of this book.
What do you have, Atticus?
It's hazelnut and caramel mocha, I think.
We're walking into the College of Law right now. We're going to go to the Law Library, the most elite place to study in all of Lincoln.
I guess you could call it that. Since I was in the law library, I couldn't really say my thoughts out loud. I took some notes on my thoughts for the third quarter of this book. The big revelation from this part was that this is where the trope comes from, with like having your eyes held open while you're being forced to watch a screen. There's very cool messaging about morality and ethics, and does it even count that you're being a good person if you don't have a choice in being a good person? Also, what right does the government have to impose its ethics on you? But isn't that the only thing that a government does anyway? I'm going to spoil here a little bit, so skip ahead. I'll put a timestamp here. But pretty much our main character, gang leader Alex, in this book, he has been cured of his badness. Every time he considers doing something bad, this terrible like sickness and fear consumes him, and he has to like do something good in order to force that back down. And the question at the heart of this book is, what good is any good decision made when it is just made out of fear? Anthony Burgess here is almost arguing against every major religion. Maybe he's not. Okay, maybe I'm taking this a little bit too far. But it feels like he's like, what good is a good decision made out of fear of the consequences of a bad decision? Shouldn't we all be making good decisions out of the goodness of our own hearts? Don't get me wrong, I think every good decision and good action is good and it brings a lot of value to the world. I think it's just nicer for the person making the decision, and it feels better if it's literally just coming out of the goodness of your own heart. So call me crazy, but I don't think the government should really force all of its citizens to follow its laws by torturing them. Okay, I just finished the book in terms of the original American publication, and there's so much to say on how the last chapter is not in the original American publication. The original ending of the book and the American publication, it is very pessimistic. I need to read this last chapter. Okay, another thing I'm really excited to talk about is the last chapter and how it was left out of the original American publication. So Anthony Burgess talks all about it in the introduction of this book. He says that his New York publisher told him pretty much straight up, if we're going to sell this in America, we're just going to take off the last chapter. There's nothing you can do about it. Funny enough, you go to the end of the book and there's a little note from the publisher and it says, You know, us and the author, we've got some different memory about how that went down. It was more of a conceptual suggestion, and it's very telling that they think they're going to sell more books in America by creating these really distinct lines between good and evil, and kind of arguing the point that people don't change. I think that's really reflected in the current political state of the United States, that everyone believes there's good and evil, and then Burgess's real idea at the end of the novel that people grow up and they mature and they change and they realize the fault in their actions is completely disregarded by Americans, I guess. But the thing is, they didn't even get a choice to disregard it. It just says a lot about the way that the world views the United States of America. But I'm glad that they put the last chapter back in so you had the option of reading it in the States at least. Okay, and the last thing on this book is the title, A Clockwork Orange. So Burgess actually spells it out plainly in the introduction, and he says that it's kind of an old British saying, a clockwork orange. It's something that you compare other things to, like an honest politician is a clockwork orange, mate. An orange, which is this, natural thing that's just a fruit and it's tasty. It does not work like clockwork, like having this mechanical adjective before it doesn't make any sense at all. But I definitely agree with the sentiment that you cannot make people into machines. This book gets 5 stars from me. Alright guys, it's a beautiful day outside, and it's also St. Patrick's Day. So I got the green, do not pinch me through the screen. I am safe. Wait, you're not wearing green. Sorry. Anyway, we're gonna get started on The Pearl by John Steinbeck. It's just about as long as The Old Man and the Sea, which I now know is by Ernest Hemingway. I'm really excited for this one. I really liked John Steinbeck last time, and I think this is gonna be another hit for me. All I know is that Kino, he literally just dives for pearls for a living. And I think one day he finds like the biggest pearl there ever was. So let's see what happens. But let's dive in. That's a joke because he dives for pearls. Okay, so this man just walked up to me reading, scratched the heck out of my book. Oh, and also knocked over my time lapse. Thank you for that, Oreo. I guess I'm not time lapsing anymore, that's fine. Okay. So I did not have like a midway report on The Pearl, because The Pearl is a very straightforward book, and it's very different from Of Mice and Men. It's based off of a Mexican folktale, and you can really tell that in the way that the story is told. The characters aren't that deep. These characters are kind of just used to represent like a whole people, and it's just to represent how greed and wealth can really consume a person. It also says a lot about capitalism. There's one guy that buys all the pearls, but he has all these little businessmen that buy the pearls from the farmers, and they all pretend to be part of their own thing, but really it all goes up to the same guy. And with that, they are able to really scam all these people because they're all working together, right? Anyway, this is very Old Man and the Sea coded. It's just this man. He is a pearl man. He dives for pearls, finds the biggest pearl that has ever been known. Turns out to be the worst thing that has ever happened to them. And basically the message at the core of this book is that the greatest wealth in life comes from the family. So this one is a lot more straightforward than Steinbeck's other work. I only know one other work, and that's Of Mice and Men. And for that, I'm just going to give it 4 stars because it was not as touching as Of Mice and Men, which was a 5-star book, of course. I think it still has really good messaging. It's one thing and one thing only. It just tells you what it needs to tell you, and it gets out, which I do really appreciate in a book too. Thank you for the recommendation in the comments. If you have any recommendations, please comment them below. I would love to read what you guys are reading. We made it through 2 classics. We read both of them in 1-ish sitting. Let me know if you know any other really short classics that I can read in 1 sitting, because this has been a really fun challenge for me to do. I feel like getting the full scope of books in 1 sitting is just really awesome, and not something that a lot of people do, then something that I've barely gotten the chance to do. If you want to see me review 2 more classics in 1 sitting, I definitely recommend the first video in this series. If you like seeing me read like a lot of books really fast, definitely check out my 24-hour reading challenge that I did back in the fall. Super fun video. Okay, I gotta go read some more books. Bye.